Put shrooms in my roommate's coffee and got more likes than a white girl talking. More hits than a fight comp. When they fight cops didn't stop when I heard shots. Watch a dude drop from a Glock. Got up.
The person who won the $25 Steph Curry three-point contest will be announced at the end. Yo, what's up? My name is Ryan, but a lot more people know me as Shook It, and this is the perfect offense-defense guide for current-gen NBA 2K14. Since not many people have next-gen yet, myself included, I figured this would be a good idea. You may remember me from my perfect defense NBA 2K13 video that did pretty well and got everyone hooked on the power of the 1-3-1 zone. But now I'm back again to make sure you're still winning at least 4 out of every 5 games you play. Because this video, like the last one, is going to give you a much better understanding of the Xbox 360 PS3 version of NBA 2K. You're going to be destroying zones, roasting kids from outside who like to pack the paint, and collecting a library of posters after I teach you how to master the setup of the pick and roll. But that's part 2. In this video, we're talking defense. Well, a little offense as well, because originally this was supposed to be one huge video for current gen, but it was going to be like an hour long, so we split it up. Just know this, if you want to get better, you got to watch and pay attention to this whole damn thing, okay? Promise me that. I guarantee that you will feel much more comfortable playing this game after watching this video and absorbing all of my early NBA 2K14 strategy. Why? Because I'm the top rated 3-point shooter in the world right now and easily the best YouTuber out there. There are 3 games I'm going to be teaching you guys with in these 2 videos, and this first one is against a guy I got matched up with in Quick Match. His gamer tag is Sky High, my guy, and in this screen right here it says his record is 61-8 and 11-1 with the Bulls. But afterwards I checked his stats, and as you can see here, he's actually 93-22. Alright, so he's a decent opponent. Are you ready? Let's go. The first thing you need to know how to do is line up your players with their hot zones, alright? As you can see here, my point guard and my shooting guard are a little bit unconventional. I've got CJ Watson at the point and Chris Copeland at the shooting guard. And this may seem a little bit crazy to you, but you'll completely understand once we get into the perfect offense guide in part 2. These guys are excellent shooters and are a great asset to have when driving to the basket with Paul George or battling down low with David West or Roy Hibbert, right? As of today with the Pacers, though, I actually run Paul George at the point because he's going to be handling the ball the majority of the time anyway, right? And then I have CJ Watson at the shooting guard and then Chris Copeland at the small forward. Why? To reiterate, the first thing you need to know how to do is line up your players with their hot zones. This is one of the most important pieces to my early NBA 2K14 strategy because you need to be able to crush kids from outside when they make a mistake, right? And in the Xbox 360 and PS3 versions, it's a lot harder to make threes even if you're wide open, on fire, and in a hot zone, so you need all the help you can get. So make sure you go into practice mode with your favorite teams and organize your starting and bench lineups according to what side of the floor each player is more accurate from. How? Well, the Knicks, for example, have Carmelo Anthony, who has a cold zone from the left corner and a hot zone on the right wing. So I make him a shooting guard instead of a small forward. So when I spread the floor, isolate, whenever I call plays, he's shooting from a hot zone as opposed to a cold zone. Simple, right? The same thing with players like Amari Stoudemire and Tyson Chandler. If they are cold on one side and hot on the other, have Amari play at center and Tyson play at the power forward. All right, this will help you so much on the offensive side of the court. And this might make you feel a little skeptical about your defense, right? Switching all these players around. Well, trust me, it won't affect you at all because of what we're talking about next. The extremely important defensive settings. In the pregame defensive setting menu, the screen right here, the only thing I want you to do is change the hedge setting to no hedge, all right? The rest I want you to wait to do until you get into that full menu at the beginning of the game because I don't want you showing your opponent how you're playing certain players. Once you get into the game, press start and go into coaching and then down to defensive settings. Go all the way to the right and for every single player, change hedge to no hedge. And then go back up to the top and pay attention. This next part is very important. You're going to set up your preferred matchups and how you want to play each player on and off the ball. And that's going to make up for our hot zone starting lineup. Again, this next part is so important. You have to remember to do this every game or you will get burned. The preferred matchups are simple. You line up your best defensive player with the other team's best offensive player. And then you go from there, filling out the rest. You want to make sure that you match up tall defenders with three-point shooters and quick guards on slashers. For the Bulls here, I put Paul George on Derrick Rose, since Sky High, my guy, is no doubt going to be running the majority of his offense through him. And then Paul George is really good at getting around screens. He has the lockdown defender signature skill and is excellent in the post defense, so he can't really cheese me with the Y button all game. As far as Jimmy Butler goes, Chris Copeland should do fine. He's tall enough to get a hand up on his threes, and then finally we're going to throw C.J. Watson on Luol Deng. And this may seem like a mismatch, but C.J. Watson is actually a pretty solid defender, and Deng is pretty slow in NBA 2K. Moving on, you can set up your preferred matchups for the front court if you'd like, but it's kind of unnecessary considering we'll be switching and double teaming a lot with our big men. And now for the on-ball and defensive settings right here. For most starting guards and small forwards, you're going to want to play tight and deny ball because they're probably a threat from outside. And if they're not, and they're more of a slasher like Derrick Rose and Dwayne Wade, for example, you're going to want to play them moderate but still deny ball because you don't want them catching the ball with any momentum going towards the hoop. If they're a terrible three-point shooter and they're not even a good slasher like Marcus Teague, for example, you can play moderate on the ball still because you don't want them getting any momentum going towards the basket, right? And you can sag off the ball so that defender can jump in and help in the paint or double team a lot quicker. Now that might seem a little complicated, but power forwards and centers are a breeze, unless they're lethal from outside, Kevin Love for example. You want to sag off both on ball and off ball because you want them to be able to help you on screens, isolations, and double teams. How does this help? Well, sagging off on the ball allows you to prevent a lot of high post entry passes and also allows you to lock down the paint pretty easily with the coordination of both your big men under the basket. Sagging off the ball allows you to remain close to the basket in isolation plays and screens. You don't want to be guarding someone like Joakim Noah or Carlos Boozer during an isolation play in the corner. So make sure you have off ball on sag off to keep your bigs in the paint and ready to help anyone that comes at the hoop. Sagging off the ball also goes hand in hand with the no hedge option, right? You don't want to play tight or deny because you'll get burned by post players when they roll to the basket. You want your power forwards and centers playing back away from screens and ready for whatever comes at them and the basket. Back out of this menu and go down to coach profiles. As far as the coach profiles go, it's pretty similar to last year, but I'm still experimenting a little bit. You're going to want to play in the low to mid 90s for on-ball defensive pressure. 100%, no doubt there. As far as off-ball defensive pressure, this one I'm still currently doing some tests on, but for me and in this game, I played with it in the low to mid 90s, and that has worked well for me since I started playing NBA 2K14, so stick with that until I find out otherwise. Help defense is another one I'm 100% sure on. You always want this pretty high. In this game, it's also in the low to mid 90s, but if you're playing an extremely talented three-point shooting team, you want to play it in the low mid 80s to make sure that the passing lanes for shooters aren't always so wide open. The fast break profile is the last one I make any changes to, and I always turn that down to 0 for one simple reason. You pretty much create your own fast breaks in NBA 2K, right? You're the one with the ball, so you determine whether to turbo up the court and attack the rim or slow it down and get into a set. And there's always at least one other guard or forward that runs in tandem with you, right? So the idea behind turning it down to 0 is to make sure your power forwards and centers don't needlessly waste any energy and stamina trucking their way up the court at a dead sprint. Keep this low and keep your players rested. The very last thing we're going to do is quickly add a zone destroyer to our playbook, and we're ready to go. I'm not going to explain this too much until we get into part 2, which is all about offense, but I love playing against kids who run zones all game in NBA 2K14 because it just means free, wide open, excellent release threes for me for 24 minutes, okay? And the crazy thing is that it doesn't matter at all which zone they run. It could be a 2-3, a 3-2, or a 1-3-1 zone. You can disassemble zones one player at a time extremely easy in this game. Any defense besides half-court man-to-man can be dissected and dismantled without too much effort. So what you're going to do is after you finish correcting your coach profiles, you're going to press B and go up twice to playbooks and then press A and go down to edit playbook and then press A, and then you should see this screen right here. The column you see on the left holds all of the plays that are currently in the playbook for the team you chose, right? The column on the right, however, holds all of the plays that are available for use in the entire game. And we're going to choose one simple one very quickly and add it to our playbook. And this works for every single team. It's always going to be there. All you have to do is use the left analog stick and switch over to the right panel and then use the right bumper not the right trigger, but the right bumper to cycle through the play types until it goes from isolation to post up high. Now in post up high, the first play will always be horns flex high, and this is the one you're going to add to your playbook, okay? Pretty simple, right? So click A on it, and this screen will come up that says, would you like to add horns flex high to this playbook? And you're going to go down to yes. Now press B once and back out and go into edit playbook, and it's going to ask you to save the changes you just made to the playbook. So go down to yes, save and exit. And then this screen will come up, and all you have to do here is make sure you have your point guard selected. You can swap between all the players on the roster with the right and left bumpers, right, or the R1 and L1 buttons on the PS3, I think. But essentially what this menu does is it controls what plays come up first in the menu when you manually call a play on the D-pad. So do you remember what type of play we added to our playbook? It was a post-up high play, and to make destroying the other kids' zones that much easier, we're going to change the first type of play that CJ Watson calls when we open up the playbook in-game to post-up high. And then back all the way out of the menus and you'll be ready to play. No saving needed for edit playbook. And now for how I play on-ball defense. The first thing we're going to set up are the controller settings, which you can save in the main menu and will never have to be touched again after that. What you're going to do is you're going to go into options and then down to my controller and then into controller settings and then down to icon lead passing. You're going to turn this off because it is a turnover machine, all right? If you're like me and you use icon passing for almost every single pass you make in a game, you don't want to be bothered by worrying whether or not you're throwing a pass ahead or behind someone, okay? So I just keep it off and throw chest passes right on target by making sure that icon lead passing is off. Next up is the most important setting in the game for on-ball defenders, the automatic shot contest. This allows you to worry about one less thing while guarding someone straight up. With this option on always, the only thing you have to worry about is staying close and in front of your man if he's a shooter. If he decides to pull up in your face, the game will react like you would in real life and contest the shot instead of making you rely on pressing the Y button in time. Lastly is the defensive assist strength. Now this setting can fluctuate depending on what type of player you are. New players should definitely stick to this being at 100 until you get comfortable with the controls and how the game moves and feels to you. To veteran 2K players, this is purely personal preference because having it at 0 allows you to slide into passing lanes quickly and help off the ball, while having it set at 100 allows you to stick much closer to the person you're guarding and lock him up if he's a jump shooter, because the AI has a slight pull to it where it would be playing the ball in that situation. Now pay attention, this next part is very important. What you need to learn how to do in this game is play on-ball defense on the worst or slowest offensive guard or small forward on the other team. In this case, that is Luol Deng for the starting lineup. Never, and I repeat, never guard the power forward or center for any reason. If the guy you're playing against loves to shoot the 3 ball and knows how to take advantage of the CPU defense, then sometimes you're going to have to take the time to guard those lethal 3-point shooters close, like Jimmy Butler and Mike Dunleavy. But if not, stick to playing off the ball on the worst player between the point guard, the shooting guard, and the small forward, and guarding the passing lane and bumping him out of the paint so he can't catch the ball underneath the basket. 2 things now. Number 1, if the player you're guarding off the ball manages to get the ball, you're going to have to guard him straight up. NBA 2K14 is all about half-court man-to-man, and you're going to have to learn how to play it if you want to win consistently. Again, just make sure you understand that sometimes you're going to have to guard the ball. Stay disciplined and never touch the Y button. If he gets open, all you have to do is run at him and let the automatic shot contest jump for you. As long as you run up close to him, he won't make the shot. It's pretty cheesy and needs to get patched because all of that momentum should create a foul. But for now, just remember not to press Y and leave that for the automatic shot contest, because you will get tricked into jumping if you're not locked in defensively. The last thing you want to do is get scared about guarding the ball and switch off the ball and end up guarding someone like Derrick Rose and have him run off a screen or cut to the basket and score the easiest 2 points of his life. You have to learn how to play on-ball defense and do it confidently. So understand that you're going to have to rely on the automatic shot contest and live with him getting some space on you from mid-range and pulling up for a jump shot. Just make sure you guard him tight along the 3-point line if you see he takes a lot of threes. Number 2, Don't guard in the post, ever. Never guard the power forward or the center on the other team, okay? Allow the CPU to defend underneath the basket and box out and grab rebounds for you. Do not try to do this yourself. You will get burned off the dribble with a slow-ass big man, and you will get very frustrated if you miss time jumping for a rebound and allow any second chance points. Do not, I repeat, do not guard the players under the basket. Learn how to defend on the perimeter and stay there. Next up is how we're going to play defense. And this involves a slew of different strategies that all combine into one process, so stick with me here. Our go-to defense is the half-court man-to-man, but it is in our best interest to constantly make the guy we're playing feel uncomfortable and frustrated when trying to score. I'm a firm believer that good defense is the foundation to what makes a good team. If you can keep a team frustrated offensively, they're going to get discouraged on the other side of the ball too if they're not seeing their shots fall. So what we're going to do is constantly switch up the defense we play every quarter, but still play man-to-man. Am I losing you a little bit? Listen, in the first quarter, we're going to help and double team pretty strong off the weakest perimeter player the other team has. So Luol Deng, for example. We're going to make him run his offense through Deng instead of his comfort zone in Derrick Rose. You see what I'm saying? You're going to help and double Derrick Rose on and off to force him to give the ball up to Deng at least once every possession. Just be smart about this. In the second quarter, we're going to play straight up. We're going to play lockdown defense and see if he tries to revert back to his old ways of just trying to score with Derrick Rose. In the third quarter, we're going to trap the corners occasionally by using the LB or L1 button. In the fourth quarter, we're going to use whichever one was the most effective throughout the game, or possibly throw him a curveball and bust out the 1-3-1 zone like every other possession to keep him guessing. Just remember that if you're going to use the 1-3-1 zone, you're constantly double teaming with it. You can no longer sit in a zone and defend the court efficiently. The 1-3-1 is an anticipate and gamble zone that's great for patrolling passing lanes, but not as a consistent every time down the floor option. The most effective style of play for me on the defensive side of the ball is the weak side help on superstars like I talked about earlier with Luol Deng and Derrick Rose. If he starts catching on and starts making plays with Luol Deng, then I'll fall back and hit him with something else, but that weak side help is my go-to on defense. So, to recap, remember the defensive settings. Play man-to-man. Guard the worst player on the perimeter and do not guard in the post. Mix it up every quarter. Throw in some zone and see what happens. That wraps it up for part 1. Part 2 is all about offense and how to score on the fast break, scoring every time in the post, shooting jump shots consistently, money plays and zone destroyers, substituting, picking your starters, dominating the pick and roll, dribble moves, and everything else you need to know to destroy kids in current gen NBA 2K14. And as for the Steph Curry 3-point Twitter competition, the $25 first place prize was taken home by my man Ryan Lee here, at The Real Ryan Ree. He was one out of 11 people who entered, and the video he submitted was only one of 3 videos I got, so pretty good odds of winning. If you would like to compete in some simple NBA 2K14 freestyle challenges for Microsoft points, all you really need is a cell phone and NBA 2K14, and then every month just stay on the lookout for a tweet about the next contest, and you could turn your free throw skills or your jump shot skills into some free Microsoft points. But you gotta beat me first.